Okay, so this is going to be part 2 of my video on using ChatGPT to help me roleplay a client and talk you through how I would work with it in therapy. So just in case you haven't watched the first video, I'll just talk you through a little bit about where we're up to so far. So this client has come to therapy. They described issues around anxiety and they were very anxious in the session. So in the first video, what I did was to help them to regulate their anxiety better, be able to recognize it in their body. And they're now more regulated in the session. But the last thing that they've asked is that they want to know what's driving it. So that it's not just staying calm and that they can regulate it, but actually they want to be able to figure out why it's there in the first place. The other thing that they mentioned is that they're worried that there's something underneath that they're not facing. So whether that's something kind of almost subconscious, like they're aware that something's there, but the fact that they're worried about it suggests maybe that it's something, whether it's something emotional, whether it's some sort of internal conflict, but there's something there that they maybe are subconsciously wanting to avoid. So in a way right now, there's a few options in terms of where I can go. I guess I could ask for a particular example of where they experience the anxiety, because that would help me to kind of get a bit more of an idea about what their understanding is of what's causing it maybe. I could ask them a little bit more about if they have any sense of what it is that they're worried about that might come up. Again, it's a way of kind of understanding, it might be a routine. They may say straight away, oh, well, I've got these feelings towards X, Y, and Z, and that's why it's there. And it's great. We can begin to explore those feelings. But I think what I'm going to ask firstly is just for them to monitor the anxiety in the session. And that can be a great way of helping understand cause and effect, because if they're noticing they're getting more anxious in the session, then we know that there must be something we're doing in that moment that's creating anxiety. So I think I'm just going to ask them to monitor it in the session and point out the reason why. Okay, great. So one of the best ways we have in order to try and figure out what's driving this is for you to be able to pay attention and monitor the anxiety in this session. So if you notice it increasing as we're talking, it might give us an idea that there's something happening right now that's making you anxious. So is it okay if you pay attention and monitor your own anxiety in the session? Okay, so let's just see what the client has said back. So yeah, that makes sense. I can do that. I'll try to notice if it spikes or changes while we talk. They take a short breath and glance down briefly. So again, from the first video, what we noticed is that there does to be a tendency to potentially look away. Whether that's what that's referring to there, I'm not quite sure. Okay, and then great. If we look at this second part here, the client is already pointing to some cause and effect here. It's already gone up a bit just thinking about what might come up. So great, we have cause and effect that they're thinking about what might come up, and then they start to get more anxious. So therefore, this is clearly a sign of something that we need to look more into. So, at this point, I think I'm just going to ask them about what it is that they think might come up, because maybe they know, and great, we're straight into something. Maybe they don't know, and again, that just, this all gives us a bit of information about what's going on. So I'm going to ask, and then we'll see what comes back from that. Okay, so you've mentioned about something that might come up, and that seems to be creating anxiety for you. Can you tell me a bit about what it is that you think is coming up that is beginning to make you anxious right now? Okay, so let's see what's come up then. It's probably about my dad. Okay, so, the client's already gone towards something here that they probably know that it's linked to. I haven't really talked about him much. Every time I even think about it, I feel this knot in my stomach, like right now. So again, the client is observing better their anxiety in their body, and they notice right now a knot in the stomach, which is a sign of heightened anxiety. So thinking about dad causes a rise in anxiety. The hand presses against their abdomen as they speak. He wasn't violent or anything. Okay, so that's kind of like what you would call negation. So they're beginning by telling me what they're not. But again, it's kind of likely that it's going to move towards what they really are. So let's see what they say. He wasn't violent or anything, but he was unpredictable. You never knew what mood he'd be in. I think I learned to stay quiet, stay small. And when you asked that question just now, the same feeling came up, like I should be careful what I say. Okay, so I think in a way, ChatGPT has been very generous in the information it's given me here. I'm not sure that it would necessarily flow so easily in terms of understanding the whole picture in the session. But if we kind of link all of this together, what we've got then is that he was unpredictable, which again we're not fully clear on what that means, but obviously it's somewhere probably within the spectrum of anger or aggression, given that they've initially said it wasn't anything to do with violence, because you never know what mood he'd be in. And then what we get next then is that I learned to stay quiet, stay small. Okay, so this was kind of their coping mechanism for the situation then, likely, is that they shrunk down in response to what he would say, which again is kind of an anxious response, isn't it? We shrink down, we hide when we're anxious. This is kind of a protective mechanism. And when you asked that question just now, that feeling came up that I should be careful what I say. Okay, so there's a little bit of kind of muddledness in that statement right there, because obviously they've referred to feeling, but of course this isn't a feeling as in terms of an emotional response right now, but this is more of kind of a defense mechanism. I should be careful what I say. So that's not actually the emotion itself. But we're getting a bit of a picture here. So unpredictable situations trigger anxiety, and then the person shrinks down in response to it. So if I was to begin to formulate this a bit right now, I would think that this anxiety is triggered due to unresolved feelings towards their father in this situation. Because if you imagine, if you're a grown adult and somebody is unpredictable towards you, you're probably going to experience something emotional towards them, probably anger in this response. As a child, we can't have that response. So because of potentially what happens if we are angry towards them, so we display different mechanisms to manage that. So this person's kind of almost got a blueprint in place that in unpredictable situations, they get anxious and they shut down and they stay small. So, okay, so we've got a bit more information here. They've been very open with this information right now. They've got a bit of anxiety in the stomach, so I just need to be aware of that because it's already a sign that they're getting more anxious in the session, and we just need to make sure that that's monitored okay in the session. We don't want it going too high, and we're going to need to regulate it. But at this moment in time, I'm just going to kind of ask another question here, just because the information they've given me is really helpful, but it's a bit vague. What does unpredictable mean? So I'm just going to ask them then to give me an example of a situation with their dad where he would be this way, and we'll just see what comes back up from that, whether we get a little bit more information, whether we get more rise in anxiety, which is probably going to be likely because I'm asking them to be more specific, and therefore it's going to get them closer to the emotions around this. But again, let's just see what happens when I pose this question to them. Is it possible to give me a specific example of when your dad was unpredictable with you? Okay, so let's see what we get. The client's shoulders tense again. So being asked that question's already caused a rise in anxiety in them. Let's see what they say. Yeah, one time I came home from school. I must have been about 12. I'd done well on a test and I went to tell him. He was in the living room watching TV, and when I started talking, he just snapped, told me to be quiet, said I was showing off. Okay, their eyes narrow slightly and their voice is tight. Okay, so a tightness in the voice is a sign of anxiety in the body. Some people, you'll begin to notice they kind of have a little bit more of a high pitch sound to it, or it just sounds a bit more croaky as well. And what this is likely then is linked to a rise in feelings that this person has when they recall this. The tightening of the throat is almost like the body's way of suppressing the emotion that's trying to come through. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that in this part as well. But let's just see what else they've said. It was confusing because another day he'd tell me I didn't talk enough, that I was too quiet, that I never knew which version I was going to get. Again, so they look down again. A faint tremor in the jaw. Okay, so I'm trying to picture that again. I'm kind of having to visualize a bit, but could be a sign of sadness, could be a sign of anger, I guess, if something's happening within the jaw. Even now thinking about it, I can feel that same kind of alertness in my body, like I should back off. Okay, so this again tends to be something that you'll notice with clients, is that they're kind of mapping out the whole picture in terms of their experience for you, in this way. So again, we're painting this picture. Unpredictable dad that would be very critical and kind of uses anger towards the client. The client would get anxious, which they're referring to as this alertness in the body, and they feel like they should back off, which is their coping mechanisms to manage with being on the receiving end of anger. Okay, so again, there are a few avenues I can go down with this. I think ChatGPT has been very helpful in the information they've given me so far. So the fact that we're starting to map out this picture of anxiety when dad is critical, I think I'm just going to ask the client if they're also aware of any feelings that this brings up for them in this moment in time. Again, I think with the help that ChatGPT has given me, I'm getting a sense that we might get some feelings here that begin to come up that are underneath this kind of cause of anxiety, because it tends to be anxiety in the body is kind of a suppression of emotion. If you imagine that feelings kind of wanting to move and express outwards, if you're getting anxious, everything is tightening up, and the likelihood is that this is kind of the blueprint that this client has, is rather than get to feel the feelings they had about what their dad would do in this situation, their body tightens up and they have to hide away. So I'm just going to ask them to see if they know what the emotions are that are underneath this anxiety. Okay, so you notice right now that you're beginning to get more anxious as you tell me about what your dad would do to you in these situations. Are you aware of any feelings that are coming up as well alongside this anxiety? Okay, so let's see what the response is. The client's breathing becomes shallower again. Okay, so that's again, we've got more anxiety and their hands grip tightly together. I'm guessing kind of in maybe this sort of emotion right now, which again, so this is anxiety in the body. It could be this, maybe it's this. Oh, it says together. So, okay, so they're probably doing this sort of movement. Now, a lot of the times in sessions, people do this because they're kind of suppressing feelings. Because what happens if you don't have your hands together? They may start to experience some anger. Tends to be what the emotion is underneath it. So the fact that they're doing this gripping motion right now could be a sign of something that's getting activated. So let's see what they say. Yeah, I can feel something else underneath it. It's like anger, I think, but it's mixed with guilt straight away. Like I shouldn't feel that towards him. Okay, so this is really helpful information in this. So they have anger towards their dad, but a guilt comes in straight away, like it's not allowed. So a lot of the times, this is a very common experience for people when it comes to unresolved anger from the past. In a sense, it's like the mind can't recognize that the experience of anger in the moment isn't actually harming the person that it's aimed towards. Now, as kids, this is kind of a part of our ego development that we don't really have, that we maybe feel angry towards somebody, but in our child brain, we think, oh, if I'm going to be angry, I'm hurting that person. So I'm going to feel guilty about it and I'm going to suppress it instead, which seems to be probably what's happening right now with this client. They have some anger towards their dad, but they're getting guilty. So I'm going to probably have to do a little bit of work with the client around that, just to help them recognize that feeling anger right now in this moment is not hurting anybody. and see if they kind of can hold on to that idea as well. But let's see what else they say. The leg starts bouncing again, faster this time. Okay, so we're kind of on the cusp here of anxiety going over with the leg movement like this. So we're kind of what we would call threshold. I'm kind of pressing them towards feelings here, but the more I'm pressing towards feeling, the more that the anxiety is beginning to come in, because the anxiety system is activated because the client's feeling something that is somewhat of a threat to their internal system. So we're kind of at threshold here. They've named anger. They know it's underneath this, but they're also getting more anxious. Let's see what else they've said. It's weird. It's there, but I can't really let it out. It's like the moment I notice it, my body clamps down. Okay, so again, there's lovely visualization of what's happening here. They have anger towards their dad, unresolved anger, yet the body clamps down to suppress that feeling. And my chest is tight again now. Okay, so we've got this battle going on here. They're getting more anxious because of their anger towards their dad, and they've got this kind of internal rule here, which is it's not okay for you to feel anger towards your dad. So I think what I'm going to do to maybe try and help them in this situation, because ultimately this person, in order to resolve their anxiety, needs to be able to feel their anger that's being triggered by the anxiety, that's being triggered by the situation causing anxiety. But they need to probably separate out right now that this internal emotion of anger isn't harming anybody right now. So I'm just going to help them kind of recap. I'm just going to help them make sense of that right now in this moment and see what comes up from it. So it sounds like right now that you have anger towards your dad for what happened, but it's as if your body's telling you that it's not okay to have this anger towards him, that you should be punished with this guilt, even though this is just a feeling you have here with me towards him, and it's in no way harming him right now. So again, I've just done that to sort of separate out from what's happening right now to what internally might feel like is happening, which is that they have anger towards their dad, but it's not harming him right now. But their internal system's sort of saying it's not okay to have this anger. So let's see what they say in response. Okay, so the client nods slowly, eyes moist but steady on you. So potentially a rise in sadness at this. Let's see what they say. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like the anger starts to rise and then something in me shuts it down and says, you don't get to feel that. Then the guilt hits hard, like I've done something wrong for just noticing it. So there's kind of this punishing part internally here towards the anger. Let's see, they draw a shaky breath, shoulders rigid again. Even saying that out loud feels risky, like I'm betraying him or something, but also I know he hurt me. Their throat tightens, they swallow hard, staying with the feeling. Okay, so there's kind of a few things here in this information that we can really helps to build up the picture a bit more. So this last bit here I was really struck by. Even saying that out loud feels risky, like I'm betraying him or something. So this can be quite a common thing, which is... I guess what you would call kind of splitting. It's the idea here that it's not okay to feel anger towards somebody that you love, that you can't have mixed feelings towards them. And this tends to be how kind of anger gets internalized, and also why your anger towards somebody can trigger anxiety as well. So think of it in this way, that this person here clearly loves their dad. There's going to be lots of positive feelings towards them, otherwise they wouldn't have this issue with the anger that they're having right now. But along with that, their dad has hurt them, that he was unpredictable, that he was critical of them, and that he would make them feel bad about themselves. So therefore, in moments like that, they feel anger towards them, which is a normal, healthy emotional response to somebody being critical of you. But right now, internally for this person, they've got this system in place which says it's not okay for you to feel anger towards the person that you love. So therefore, you're going to have to feel guilty about it and shut it down. And therefore, we can start to map out a bit more about how this creates an issue for this person, is that they have anger towards someone that they love, but they haven't ever been able to feel it. So instead they shut down, and they've got this whole defensive system, which is to hide and shrink in response to this. So really the next steps with this client are going to be helping them to get more in touch with and express this anger fully. Because if they can resolve this unresolved anger that they feel, and maybe some other feelings that might be there that we haven't got to just yet, then what we'll see is an alleviation of the anxiety. The anxiety system no longer needs to be triggered if the unresolved feelings have been felt, because there's no threat anymore. The feelings are kind of integrated, and this whole system resolves itself. So I'm going to pause it there then for this video, and then what I'm going to do is I will come back to this in a third part, and what we'll do then is look a little bit more at helping this client to express the anger that they feel fully, and see if that helps shift the anxiety that they have in their body.